Introducing Tundra Football League.
Welcome back to all of my friends and fellow FTFLers. That's right, it is I, host of the FTFL Weekly Update, owner of the 1-0 Hulkamaniacs, and lest us not forget, your king and that song in your heart, Brett Sieber. Welcome. The 2020 fantasy football season has officially started, and what a bang did we get to start this thing off. Holy moly. Has the FTFL completely turned over? 3 of the 4 teams to miss the playoffs last week came out of the gates and put a win on the board. On the other side, the league champ, the Mixin' Cocktails, they put up the second lowest point total in the league and racked up not 1, not 2, but 3 injuries in the process. Whew, we'll just see. I mean, it is 1 week. There are 12 weeks to go. But as you know, every single week is important because if you can get to that magic number of 6 or 7, you're in, baby. You're in. Now, last week saw the debut of a brand new segment I like to call Who Dis? Now, it has come to our attention that during Who Dis, we were talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers backup running back, Benny Snell Jr. However, I did call him Barry Snell Jr. My apologies to Benny Snell, who came in relief of an injured James Conner and had a heck of a week. Also, my condolences to Barry Snell. After the show aired, it was brought to my attention that Barry Snell is no longer with us. He has passed on to the fantasy football field in the sky. I would like you to take a moment with me of silence in remembrance of Barry Snell Jr. All right, thank you. All right, so this week, Who Dis is back, and we'll find out who is going to be the focus of that just a little bit later. Also, before we get to the games this week, last week, Ryan Deason, we found out that had changed his name, his team name. There was actually an official statement that was made, with the weekly update was made aware of. I would like to read that now, just in case you had not yourself seen it. This is from the official Ryan Deason Fantasy Football Team press release for immediate release July 23rd of 2020. The Ryan Deason announces franchise will be called the Ryan Deason Fantasy Football Team, pending adoption of new name. It's out of St. Paul, Minnesota. On July 3rd, we announced a thorough review of the team's name in light of events in the country and feedback from our community. As the process has continued internally, we want to keep our players, alumni, fans, community, and sponsors apprised of key developments. For updated brand clarity and consistency purposes, we will call ourselves the Ryan Deason Fantasy Football Team, pending adoption of our new name. We encourage fans, media, and all other parties to use Ryan Deason Fantasy Football Team immediately. The Titties and Balls name and logo will officially be retired by the start of the 2020 season. Now, when he mentioned sponsors, I can only imagine the list of sponsors given his last team name. I'm super curious to see if we get a new team name at any point in time this year. That's enough for now. Let us go ahead and get into the games for the week, starting off with the league champ, Mixin' Cocktails, taking on Team Linkowitz. And as I mentioned earlier, we know Andy lost, not only in the win-loss column, but also not 1, not 2, but 3 of his starters went down with injuries. Le'Veon Bell out for several weeks. James Conner, I haven't heard for how long. Michael Thomas, high ankle sprain, is probably going to miss Monday Night Football this week, but high ankle sprains aren't something that just magically heal, unless, of course, you get like cut open and restitched like Tua did not once but twice. But I digress. For Andy, Calvin Ridley had a monster week, 24.5. Lamar Jackson, 24. Justin Tucker, 9. That was 53.5 of his 74.5 points. The other 6 players combined for 21 points. Andy got an A-plus draft rating. The depth, though, all of a sudden has come into serious question going forward. I have heard that he is putting trades out there as we speak, trying to bolster his roster going forward. Linkowitz, on the other hand, now, 82 points. Andy was only one of 2 teams Linkowitz would have beaten this week. I've often said on the show, fantasy football is a lot about, if not all, about luck. John got the luck of the draw this week. With his 82, 20 of those came from Matt Ryan, 13 from the Baltimore defense, 10.5 from Tyreek Hill, 10 from Will Lutz. His big-time cowbell backfield, Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley, all world players, combined 16.5 points. John was able to survive that, and looking to his bench, only 12.5 points. So I'm not entirely sure. Now, if Henry and Barkley play as they should, he's probably going to be okay. If not, we could find some problems going forward. For now, John is 1-0, and Andy is 0-1. Next up, the newly named Ryan Deesum Fantasy Football Team taking on the Radioactive Monkeys. 99.5 for Ryan to Salty's league low 69.5. Now, Ryan gets the win. Last year broke a 6-year streak for Ryan, finishing at 500 or above for the season. He hopes that this win is a harbinger of things to come. For now, Patrick Mahomes, Raheem Mostert, both tacked on 22. Aaron Jones put up 12 points. Matt Prater put up 12 points. Now, you heard me talk about Aaron Jones last week in reference to Clyde Edwards-Helaire. We'll find out how he did in just a moment. 3 wide receivers in Ryan Deesum's starting lineup, 0 touchdowns. Now, I hope this doesn't turn into that crazy weird streak where he scored 6 touchdowns in 9 weeks, because that would just be unreal. Adam losing to Deesum falls to 21, 17, and 1 overall. Brady did put up 22 in a rather pedestrian and or terrible performance. Mark Andrews, 2 touchdowns, 16.5 points. Harrison Butker with 10. Andrews was the only position player in Salty's lineup with a touchdown. Of course, he had 2. Mark Ingram, where has Mark Ingram gone? They may have already fallen in love with J.K. Dobbins, which doesn't bode well for Salty. Ingram notched 0. Christian Kirk, a half point. It's going to be tough for Christian Kirk to find any balls when DeAndre Hopkins is out there grabbing everything in sight. And I did mention again with Ingram, Dobbins had 2 touchdowns. I don't know if that's where things are going to go in Baltimore, but for this week, it definitely didn't help Saltmarsh. Next up, the Architect taking on the visitors from Planet B with questionable motives, and it didn't go well for our dear visiting friends. 119.5 for Matt, 82.5 for Swart. Couple things in this. First and foremost, if Matt played Swart every week, he would be a perennial Fantasy Bowl contender. His overall lifetime record against Swart now is 9-2. 9-2. And after just this one loss, I have already caught rumors that the visitors from Planet B with questionable motives, or Plan B, are already looking to fire sale and leave. What a bunch of quitters. I hope that's not the case. If you are Matt, holy cow, I mentioned about how his receiving core was potentially going to be one of the best in the league, and it did not disappoint in week 1. Devontae with 29, Adam Thielen with 27, Ezekiel Elliott put up 21.5, Carson Wentz in a shocking defeat to Washington put up 16, Leonard Fournette, half point. Not entirely sure what his role is going to be. Lots going on in Tampa, still trying to figure things out. As for Adam and his award-winning visitors from Planet B with questionable motives. Award-winning, you say? That's right. Lest us not forget. Deesum Award winning. Julio Jones 14.5, Breeze 14, Kenyon Drake with 11, and let's be clear, would have been less had Hopkins' touchdown not been waved off and he scored then a 1-yard touchdown, but he did. He only got 2 touchdowns from position players, and if he's leaving and if everything's for sale, maybe this is the last we talk about Plan B. Before we get to any more of the games, we have reached that time of the show where we're going to delve into yet another player to learn a little bit more about them. Ladies and gentlemen, who dis? Who dis? All right, so this week on Who Dis, if you were watching the Packers-Vikings game, you watched this man haul in a long touchdown pass. You also watched him drop a couple of balls, and that has kind of been a thing over the couple years he's been in the league. However, the talent is absolutely there. You're thinking, who are we talking about? Who dis? Marquez Valdes-Scantling, or as I and many in the Green and Gold Nation refer to him as MVS. He was born on October 10th, 1994. He has a birthday coming up in just a few weeks. He measures in at 6'4", 206 pounds. Lazard is 6'3" or 6'4". We have some very tall receivers who obviously gave the Vikings a lot of fits this weekend. As a senior in high school, he registered 50 catches for 800 yards and 14 touchdowns. Went on to play at NC State for the 2013 and 14 season. Transferred to South Florida, had to sit out a year. But for his junior and senior years, average catch distance, 18.9 yards, 16.6 yards per catch. The dude is a flat-out burner. He can fly, and he showed that at the Combine where he ran a 4.37 40. That's right. He is the one player on our team who can absolutely take the top off of defense, and you saw that in the game this past Sunday. Add into that a 30-inch vertical. This dude, with his size, his speed, his abilities, he has potential to be an absolute monster. He was taken in the 5th round of the draft. Some would say maybe the steal of the draft, the sod. Where's my boy Ontario at? Wizinator. Terrible. Terrible. A good rookie campaign, a little bit of a sophomore slump for MVS. He still did last year average 17.4 yards per catch. He can fly. Rodgers has tremendous faith in him. If he gets his drop thing figured out, he is going to be a force in that Green Bay passing offense. So now you know, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, who dis? Who dis? All right, so back to the games. Couple more to get to before we wrap this up and send it on home. The king of the FTFL taking on the Pack Attack, and the king has been dethroned. Although, if you've been paying attention, I am your king. That's right, Dilly Dilly. The Pack Attack, 111 to the Kings 87. Pack Attack came out the chute firing. Russell, stupid face Wilson, 34 points. What I'm hearing up in Seattle is folks are saying, let Russ cook. What a stupid saying. That's why I call you stupid face Russell Wilson. No one wants to see you cook, Russell Wilson. Juju Smith-Schuster got back on the board not once but twice. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire, first pick of the draft, notch 14. That's right. So if you're paying attention, Clyde got 14. Aaron Jones got 12. We're going to go ahead and keep track of that on the CEH versus AJ meter. I'm going to go ahead and slap that right on the wall up there. We're going to keep track of that throughout the year. Now, yes, 2 points advantage goes to Clyde. However, how many times did he run into the line and go nowhere? A lot. How many targets did he get in the passing game? 0. Yes, Clyde is quick. He's not fast. He almost got caught on that touchdown run. Some would say he maybe dialed back a little bit. He's not. His 40 time, we just talked about Marquez at a 4.3. His was a 4.66. He's not a burner, and he's not huge. At some point, he's going to get blown up. AJ is coming, Clyde. AJ is coming. For this week, didn't matter. Eric didn't need it. Marlon Mack, 3.5 points, got injured, blew out his Achilles. He's out. Melvin Gordon, you are up next. If you are Sid, his running backs didn't disappoint. It was the rest of the team. McCaffrey, 21.5. Dalvin Cook, 18.5. Noah Fant, great first week, 12.5. Phillip Rivers, only 12. Bit of an underwhelming. And then in a loss to Jacksonville, arguably the worst team in the league, who knew? Austin Eckler had a really, really underperforming day, 4.5 points. And the vaunted Minnesota defense, woo! And we're going to talk a little bit more about that because you all know whose game hasn't been talked about. And you know who we're going to talk about. 0 points for the old purple. Jared Goff, Baker Mayfield, 4 and 8 points respectively on the bench. Sid, terrible draft grade coming out of it. Depth might be an issue. Doesn't have much outside of those 2 running backs. Could it be a long season for the King? Only time will tell. And now on to the real king of the FTFL. That's right, the Hulkamaniacs, baby. And we were running wild in week 1 against Mana, 3-time Lucky Pants champ. Mana. It was week 3 of 2017. The last time I beat Jeff Markser. And who gave me a chance this week? After all, I had a washed-up quarterback. I had the worst keeper of the bunch. I had no business on the same field as Jeff Markster. Why did we even play the game? I haven't beat him in years. There was no chance. Until the boogeyman came back. 34 points for Aaron Rodgers. And if you are a Vikings fan, I see you only have two ways of looking at this game, neither of which is a whole lot of fun for you. Number one, Rodgers is as great as he's always been. Still one of the elites. Or if you're going to go on with that he's washed up, then, oh, by the way, your team is in terrible, terrible shape. If you're asking me, I think it's both, but I might be a little bit biased on that. Now, add to his 34 points, Chris Carson's 19, Alvin Kamara 18.5. Not a great rushing day. Had a few receptions, of course, 2 touchdowns. Kittle with 4 points, got hung out to dry by Garoppolo and almost got his leg torn off. We'll see. He is week to week. And the San Francisco defense, what the hell? The Arizona Cardinals just ran rampant. I know you haven't seen a receiver like Hopkins in the NFC West for some years, but come on. 4 points from them. I had 5 touchdowns on my bench, so lots of depth and 110 points in the starting lineup. Feeling pretty good. Probably not feeling super great, although he did score 105 points and would have beat almost everyone this week. Josh Jacobs, 28 points, 3 touchdowns. Now, let's not overlook the fact that he only had a 3.72 yards per carry. Those are Leonard Fournette type numbers. I guess I'll take the touchdowns. I'm not convinced. I mean, if the touchdowns aren't there, there may not be a lot of other points for him. DeAndre blew it up in his first performance with the Cardinals. Really, really shocking. 17 points there. David Johnson, 13.5. Dak Prescott dropped a giant egg on Sunday Night Football, only 12 points. Of course, Allen on the bench with 26, and Jeff would tell you Josh Allen is a better quarterback than Aaron Rodgers because he got him in the 10th round and didn't have to keep him. Nick Chubb, 4.5. Woof. Disappointing, and the Browns looked horrendous. Now, this game, if you were paying attention on Monday night, was neck and neck. It was tied 110 as the Giants went into under 2 minutes against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and Daniel Jones threw a touchdown pass, thus giving me the win and breaking the streak and sending me to 1-0. Jeff falls to 0-1. Let's get to the stud, the dud, and the decent update games next week, and we'll be out of here. The stud, oh, you know it, Aaron, the boogeyman Rodgers, and Russell stupid face Wilson. That's right, both had 34 points, both led their teams, their non-playoff teams from a year ago, into the win column to start the season. The dud, oh, Mark Ingram, 0 points. That was tough. And, oh, by the way, the vaunted Minnesota Vikings defense. Most points ever scored against the Mike Zimmer defense. Going to be a long season, Minneapolis. A decent award for the second straight year. Matt had kicker issues in week 1. How does that even happen? How does that happen? How do you not come into the season like rip roaring ready to go? This year, Matt drafted a kicker that got cut. Now, he got cut, but then it was several days later. At least he found him. He did avoid the lineup penalty that would have went to our friend Sidney Hagan, because remember, all penalty money this year will be funneled directly into Sidney Hagan's Venmo account. As we look to week 2, everyone kind of looking to either carry some momentum, change momentum, trying to get a win early in the season. The Ryan Deason Fantasy Football team at 1-0, taking on the Pack Attack at 1-0 in an all-out battle for the lead in the South. The Architect at 1-0, taking on his friend of many, many years, Sid Hagan, not Sidney Hagan, Sid Hagan, at 0-1. Mixing Cocktails looking to get out the schneid against the divisional foe, Mana, both at 0-1. The visitors from Planet B with questionable motives. Are they staying? Are they going? I'm not entirely sure. They're 0-1, taking on Team Linkowitz at 1-0. And last but certainly not least, your Hulkamaniacs at 1-0, taking on the lowest scoring team in week 1, the Radioactive Monkeys. I am super excited for everything that's to come. Lots of fun watching football this week. Fantasy football is back. Get excited. And until next week, peace!